Hello again and welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons.
And I'm Carla Garrick.
And here we are, just weeks away from the city elections. 2 weeks from today, actually.
Is it? Really?
Yeah, crazy. I think today's the 23rd. Maybe it's a week.
No, it's, wow.
2 weeks from today.
Wow.
2 weeks from today. I'm like, wait, today's the 19th. Today's the 19th. Yeah, 2 weeks from today. So, yeah, that's creeping up on us.
Yeah. I'm channeling fall for everyone.
Yeah,
back
I'm channeling
home.
warm. I did
Sine
so
wave, right?
We taped this on Tuesday mornings, and the last couple of weeks I try to throw extra sine waves into the mix just for fun. So Dan and I host a sine wave out in front of our house because we live on Farney Street, so there's tons of traffic. So we always say, come on over, have a cup of coffee, wave some signs. But I'll tell you, the response for Victoria is just really positive. Like,
That's
I
good.
always feel that way when I'm, it's easy to just get caught up and ignore the negatives or whatever. But I really do sense that when we're doing these sine waves, the people are just like waving and beeping, and I'm like, very few people throwing you the finger, things like that.
Man, I mean, thank goodness the Trump years are past us, because I would do sine waves and I'm just by default of being a Republican, like people would
scream at you. They still do randomly, but usually you just nod and smile and wave, whatever. So anyways, I did that this morning. So my teeth are still cold because 7:30 in the morning today was like 40.
Yeah, today was definitely the first time I have my coat. I grabbed that scarf that you brought me from Florida last time. I said to Louis, leaving the house, except for my black stockings, I was like, I could be in Paris today. I was feeling it, but Manch, the gift that keeps on giving out there. So you said there are all these salaries.
You were in Florida.
I was.
How was Florida?
Florida was warm.
Yeah.
It was 88 degrees. That was pretty nice. I went for Tom Woods' 2000th episode.
Yep.
That is a hard word to say.
2000th.
Almost as hard as 20,000th. Because I had to do that for a long time. So it was awesome. It was at a 4-star resort. So, I mean, Florida, 4 or 5 pools. I was
going to say, you have a random hair. I could see it.
I know.
I was like,
Sorry.
Oh my God, that would drive me nuts.
Sorry, guys. All right. The hair is gone. I can see. So, really fun episode. They had, Scott Horton from antiwar.com gave a great speech. Thousands of people, 2,500, I think they said. So all in all, a good time was had by all.
So while Carla was gone, because she didn't see the paper because she wasn't here and she reads the paper in real life.
I do.
I only get the paper on Sundays. I read the rest of it online. So in Sunday's paper, they published the top earners for Manchester and the top earners for the state. Just know, because this is a little misleading if you don't know, this does not include any school department employees.
What is that?
Because the city employees we're stupid. We have like two completely different systems. All the employee benefits and payroll for the schools goes through this, and then all the payroll and employees and benefits for everybody else goes through this. And if we just had one streamlined, all one city, we'd probably save money, but silly, we can't have that. So there's about 400 and some odd names listed here,
okay.
And this only gets them down to $84,000 in salary. Most of the... So
can I venture some guesses? I swear I haven't looked at any of this. I'm just going to go on what I know from previous times. Top salary earner, the person who runs the airport.
No, actually, a retiring police lieutenant. Because when you retire from the city, you get all sorts of back pay and bonuses and like you get to accumulate all this time, and then we pay you rather than you just taking the time while you're working. So the top salary was Jamie Gallant, who's a retired police lieutenant who made, now, I'm going to preface this, the median household income. Median meaning there are just as many people above as there is just as many people below. It is not the average income. It is the midpoint where you're in the middle. Household income. So if there's 2 people working or whatever, in Manchester is just over $60,000 a year. So just know that the midline in Manchester is about $60,000 a year. I think the per capita income, which means per person on average, is about $32,000 a year. which kind of fits into the 60, right?
Sure.
Retired police lieutenant, and I'm not knocking police because they should get paid well for their job. They have a sucky job, whatever. $256,768.72 last year.
Wow.
So then
$250,000.
Yeah. So then behind them is the airport director, which...
Oh, wow. Because he was making $320 last time.
Well, there's a different airport director.
Oh. Okay.
So we dropped them back down, but he only makes $230,000 now. And then if you look at the next one was
while our airlines has declined, flights are less. I guess we just got Spirit in. I almost flew Spirit.
So then it goes retired police chief Carl Capano at $216, current police chief Alan Aldenberg at $204, police captain, fire captain, police officer. And it goes through the first non-police fire is Kevin Shepard, who's the public works director, makes $180.
So all our top police are making over $200,000.
Well, no, I mean, a lot of the police, I'm always torn because I think about like what different people get paid in different professions. If you work if you're a computer engineer, you might make, easily make $80,000 a year. So then I think about it and I'm like, okay, so should a fireman or a police officer make comparable for what they have to do? And I'm like, I'm not begrudging anybody making a decent income. But when there are 400 or so, not including anybody on the school side of things, who are making $84,000 or above, when the median household income is only $60,000, there seems to be a disparity.
And this excludes the benefits, right?
This is just This
is
money.
just salary, and then we're talking
These
about
are dollars. This is not including their health benefits or the retirement benefits.
So this $60,000 would really, that just includes. I mean that's you're not getting. But
most of those people, think about you and your neighbors and your friends, don't have. Might not even have health insurance through their employer or anything. I work with people who have to, go into the insurance pool, which is not cheap. And that comes out of that $60,711 median household income.
So let's just parse this out a little bit in the sense that, so maybe the question would be, are these salaries above market? And if so, why? So if the median household income is about $60,000, and people who are doing, I think the librarian in Manchester makes over $100,000.
All sorts.
Right?
I tried to go out.
So then the question is, okay, would that be a market price? And my guess is probably not, right? No. Because what happens is when you take the market out of the equation, you don't allow competition. What you actually allow, which is one of the challenges we see with unions, is sort of collusion in order to artificially inflate salaries. So while Tammy says, we don't begrudge anyone making a decent salary, maybe the question becomes, how do we define what is a decent salary? Because if someone is making a salary that is above what the market would bear for the same job, then the city is exploiting us, the taxpayers, to the benefit of a small special interest group. And so that would be the concern.
And what about this? And I've said this before in different contexts, not just looking at individual salaries or whatever. The role of government, the purpose of the city government is not to be an employer. That is just not what they're there for. They're there to provide you, the people of Manchester, the necessary services that the government feels they need. So they plow the roads, they maintain the roads, they maintain the parks, all these different things. And I've often thought when you put out jobs in the government, rather than say, here's this job and it pays $80,000 a year, put that job out to bid and see who will do it for less. Because there are jobs, I bet, that you could get somebody to do well for far less than we pay. But that's because too many people think of the government as an employer. We do not sell a product. We do not generate legitimate income. We just take money from people and then spend it elsewhere.
Taxation is theft.
So in the case of, say, the librarian 2, or whatever the job is, the tax assessor, whatever that individual job is, why doesn't that job just have a salary cap? The mayor is capped at $68,000 in our city charter. Why don't we, I know what the argument back is, but why don't we say, well, if you would like to be the tax assessor job caps out at 108, whatever, some number. And the argument will be, well, you'll never get good people for those jobs. And I disagree, because I think there are plenty of people who would take a job that we are currently paying somebody $110,000 a year, which is above the market rate. But
the thing is also, sometimes when they criticize these ideas, it's like, well, then you fire the person who wasn't good, if that's the fear, right? So because of the way the government is structured, everyone has this fear of making any decision, because anytime something happens, it's impossible to turn the ship around. Well, how about we start to be a little more nimble, and we reduce that issue? So, we've said it before, but government, there's an app for that, right? So what are the services that are actually useful? So things like plowing the road.
We don't generally plowers a lot. There's no plower on that list.
Right.
So, and he's the one who's got to drive around in the snowstorm and clear the streets.
Right. But I'm just like, why couldn't we have a citywide app that was just like, why couldn't it actually be privatized, right? And a bunch of people provided the services in the same way that when we have our driveways plowed, and you could just be like, you'd have Uber for plowing, and so prices would compete and the prices would come down, and people who provide the service might make up on volume. Maybe they become a big guy who's like, oh, I have 10 trucks working for me, right? Or whatever. But when we allow the state to move into these markets and then allow no competition, then we end up with these sort of situations where there is truly a misbalance, an unbalance, because we know that a lot of these jobs, people are making more money than the market would bear.
It's just hard for not even the market, but the people paying it can bear. When the middle of the families are only making $60,000 a year, but yet they're expected to pay, these 400 people $84,000 or more. That's 400 people. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is people don't necessarily realize this. So in government, there's still pensions. The only entity in the country probably that still has pension systems.
Well, theoretically, there's pensions. There's no money. You can't like have trillions and trillions, $30 trillion in debt.
Rather than have defined contribution system, which would be the city would pay in X amount, just like a 401k, a matching system. We have a defined benefit system, which means these pensioners are guaranteed this amount forever and ever and ever. So if you live to be 110, you'll get a lot. Now, the way that's figured is based on the 3 highest years' salaries. They take the 3 best years and average those out, and then it's like 50% of that. But what people also don't realize is overtime factors into that. Police details factor into that. So in Manchester, police officers earned about almost $4 million in overtime pay in 2020. All that factors into the pension obligations that go on and on and on and on.
So I have a question. When the police are, acting like the orange cone next to a construction
detail
site.
Work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that part of police work, or is that overtime work?
No, it's
or
not
where
overtime.
Does that
So the
fit
way
in?
it works is, so you have a police officer, right? Let's just say Joe, the police officer, who has his regular scheduled hours. I don't know what that is. I don't think it's 40 hours a week for a police officer, to be honest, which I'm not sure I really would have a problem with, because if it's an intense job, I don't know if we should be working endless hours. But anyways, so Joe, police officer, has to work this many hours according to his contract. Then if he works more hours in the car, on patrol or whatever, that's overtime pay, right? Police detail is 100% voluntary.
What?
And you can work, if I'm not mistaken, I think you can only work up to something like 20 hours a week on police detail. And it pays about $50 or $60 an hour. But it is paid through the city. It's not like it's paid. So when Verizon, or when Consolidated Communications has to have somebody on the street because there's construction work being done, or some construction project has to have police details because they've got their cranes in the road, they're not paying those police officers that $60 an hour direct. They pay that through the city, and the city pays them, and the city keeps like this much for administrative. So it's not the city benefiting, it is directly benefiting those officers that are doing it. But those dollars contribute to their public pension. So it's really misleading.
I've heard that, and certainly you can look at, in the time I've been in Manchester, I think we've had at least 3, if not 4 police chiefs, right?
A lot lately.
And I mean, for, let's say, in the last
10 years.
Yeah. Yes. Right. And so it's my understanding that kind of when people are getting towards the end, when they know they're about to pension out, there's this like push to push.
They call it spiking. So you do a lot of overtime and you do a lot of detail work and you do all this stuff so that there's 3 years. Maybe in other years you only made $109,000, and then suddenly there's 3 years where you made $180,000 a year. And guess what? Your pension's not based on the average pension over the entirety of your career. It's based on the average of the 3 highest years.
So one might posit then that because certainly in my time, it seems like we've always had a police chief for 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. They always are just in for that little window of time, and then they skip out.
Well, I mean, right now, just the top 4, there's 2 chiefs.
Right, there are 2 chiefs in the top 4. So, just relaying the data. Then, is it not true that a lot of the people who then receive these massive salaries that they've kind of pushed up, they get their bennies, and then they go and I believe it is called double dipping.
Well,
so I know for a fact one of those 2 chiefs on the top 4 there is also working.
Well, this is where I don't know if people do refer to it as double dipping. I think the pension system is just woefully flawed, because I don't believe, wouldn't it be nice if they could only collect that pension when they achieve retirement age, which I believe, according to Social Security, would be 62 or 65, 68. It keeps going up, right? But it's not that way. They can collect a portion of their pension much earlier, and then I forget exactly what.
A lot of these people retire when they're like 50, right? Like you're in I think you only have to be in the program for 20 years. You shouldn't be
able to collect your public pension
if you're not retired.
And the problem is that it's not like somebody retires from the city and goes and works at Ace Hardware at a little part-time job. A lot of these people do leave one public sector job and then go work in another entity. So they leave the city government and they go to work for the state, or they leave the city government and they go to work for another city, or they leave this city and go to work for the county.
And then they start collecting pension on that, right?
There's still, it would depend, I guess, because the state pension covers police and fire. Okay. It's part of the state pension system. The city pension covers other city employees. So it's just the pension system basically just doesn't work. It no longer it's not a good system. Just saying. So I don't know.
Do you think that that's something? Okay, so that's what the problems are. Like, if we put on our magic hats, like, how would you solve this? Is there a way to do
away with public pensions? And I know I know those involved in maintaining the public pension system say, well, if you shut it off, the promises made to all these other people wouldn't work because the number doesn't match. So I say, okay, so we switch to a 401k. Manchester says, starting tomorrow, every new employee will at some point be able to get matching funds for the 401k. They can choose to put their own money into the retirement fund just like everybody else does in their own private lives. And then at some point, the city will start matching funds. Unfortunately, because the system on the pensions was so woefully broke, those people coming in now in some term, probably would just have to get screwed. They wouldn't get as much matching money until the pension system drained out and there was no more. And then the city, I would feel much better if you work for the city for 20 years and we match your retirement up to a certain point, dollar for dollar. At least when you choose to leave, one, that retirement money goes with that employee. And if they go then to work to the city of Somersworth or, the town of Derry or whatever, they could continue to add to their retirement fund. And then but Manchester taxpayers would no longer be on the hook for their retirement. It could be done. It's just there's too many employees who do not want their promises touched. It's like the third rail of politics. You can't talk about saying the money doesn't exist. It's a fallacy that these pensions can be sustained. It's a simple math equation.
Now, to be fair, I mean, we are talking on the city level, on the state level as well. We have, now New Hampshire is in way better shape than I think 49 other states. Like, I mean, we're broke, but we're not
as broke as
nearly as broke as everyone else. So I guess we have that going for us. And if I remember correctly, maybe in the last 5 or so years, there was some kind of audit, and they looked at it and they said, okay, if we do X, Y, and Z, we will be able to cover these promises. But we're going to have to start to move towards different kinds of models. And I'm just really keen to see, why can't we privatize some of these services? Like, why does that seem like such a strange suggestion to people? Because it's like, but we know that, by way of example, private trash services can work. They do work. They work in other places in the world. We know that private plow works because a lot of us use them if you live in a rural area. So it's sort of like, I feel like we could be trending towards trying to change some of this, because the argument also that people are like, oh, no, it'll do it for less money. It's like, well, that's not
that's what I mean. Like,
true.
If you look at any of these jobs and you say, okay, civil engineer one, I'm not begrudging this person individually, but civil engineer one, $86,679. That might be perfectly reasonable for for a civil engineer. But when that person leaves and that position becomes open, rather than say, okay, we have this job that pays $80,000, why don't we say we have this job, we're taking bids for that job. And you can still be an employee and get the benefits of being in the employee pool. But what if somebody's just starting out as a civil engineer says, you know what, I'm out of college, I'll take that job for $52,000.
So this is totally unrelated, but did you saw that we have all the container ships that are out sitting in the ports? So can I just rant about all the propaganda for a second? So I saw a thing today that said all the actual shortages and all those container ships are because of consumer demand.
No, so it's because they're not unloading the damn boats.
Right. So I had a really interesting conversation with my Uber driver in Florida. So this gentleman works for Universal Studios. Mm-hmm. That's his main job. When they shut down Universal Studios for 2 months last year during the height of COVID, before Florida got their senses back and just continued with life as normal, and things went on as normal. Go look at the comparative data, results from different states. Yep. None of it mattered. So he said that when they shut down for 2 months, he started becoming an Uber driver. He has 5 kids. He needs to support his family, whatever. And then he just decided to continue to do it. He was in a IT department with 12 people. They for the 2 months, they were furloughed, and all of them received their salaries. When they reopened, they only brought 4 of them back, I believe. 3 of them back. And then there were 9 who didn't really have, who were furloughed further. Out of those 9, only 3 were brought back, and 5 stayed on welfare because they were making more money with all the benefits that are being paid by the federal government. So we have a labor shortage. The labor shortage is being caused by several things. It is by
people not wanting to people don't want to go back to work for what they used to make because they got more money for a while, so now they want more money all the time.
So, we have inflation that is, let's talk about
steak being, steak tips are on sale now for $7.99 a pound, not $3.99 a pound.
So I swear, I actually saw this come out of the Legacy News. Oh, inflation is going to be good for you. You should celebrate getting inflation because your salary is going to be higher.
No.
Let me tell you something.
Maybe if you work for the
government.
government.
If you have $100 and something costs $10 and this starts to cost $20 and you're getting $200, you haven't made any more money. No. So, there's this massive distortion that is just going on in our labor markets, in our consumer markets, in all of
it.
And
it's all based on this, a lot of it is just all on this, for lack of a better word, this propaganda that's being pushed constantly on people. And I'm going to diverge into something else because this is annoying the crap out of me. Everybody watching this, understand this. And this isn't a political thing. This is just the way it works. If you're vaccinated, that's fine. You are probably less likely to suffer severe COVID sickness. If you're not vaccinated, that's also fine. That's your decision. Everybody should have that choice. The reality is, in today's world, based on science and the data, we can see that the vaccinated people
are spreading,
are just as can still catch and can still spread COVID.
Yep.
So when any entity says, unless you're vaccinated, you need to wear a mask, they are not following the science. If you think one person needs to wear a mask to keep these people safe, then all people would need to wear a mask to keep those people safe. If you're saying non-vaccinated people must wear a mask, vaccinated people who can still spread the virus don't need to wear a mask, that is based on propaganda and shaming, not on science. It is getting old. I'm tired of tiptoeing around it. Too many people are listening to sound bites instead of thinking on their feet. There is nothing wrong with getting vaccinated if that is your choice and you think that is a better choice for you and your body. That is a decision that should be made only by you and your doctor and your family, not by the government, not by people on social media. Start thinking for yourself because this is so out of control. I'm at a loss of words. That doesn't happen.
Check out my book, The Ecstatic Pessimist, Stories of Hope Mostly. You can find it on Amazon and carlagarrick.com. We're going to run out of time.
I'm just going to shamelessly make a plug for Victoria. You can visit our website to donate or volunteer your time. VictoriaSullivan4mayor.com. Come on out and help your next mayor. That's all we got. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.